Hi, I'm Mike Peters. Today we're going to continue our conversation with Chuck Jones, a man who spans some 50 years in cartoon animation. He has truly been part of the evolution of animation. He has moved from Porky to Daffy Duck to a prominent place in children's programming, with such delights as The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. So please join us for a chat with Chuck Jones. I've got a ton of questions to ask you, so I'm going to start these kind of fast. Now, the last time we were together, you were talking about the classic age of cartooning, and the classic age for Warner Brothers was not the same classic age it was for, say, Disney.
Correct. Golden Age is a wonderful term, isn't it, Golden Age? Yes. But one thing I will say at the outset, nobody knows. I mean, you're living in the golden age of great cartooning, and you're one of the great cartoonists. And you stimulate me, and I stimulate thousands of people, and it's such a joy to be here. But nobody knows when they're living in a golden age. Mm-hmm. They look back and say, what was it like to live in a golden age? Geez, was it golden? It felt kind of leaden to me. I mean, the outside thing, what we try to do is to give it a little pizzazz if the statement still holds true. The Golden Age, however, retrospectively, and I think you can only find a Golden Age by doing it historically, is say that the Disney started perhaps in, maybe a little before, but in 1933 when they did the Three Little Pigs. And then they went on and made wonderful short subject up to the Old Mill and some of those things, right up to, say, 1940 when they went into features. You know, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Fantasia, those wonderful things. Well, the first definitive Bugs Bunny, Tex Avery's The Wild Hare, and Friz Freleng's discovery of what Porky Pig and Daffy could be like, happened around 1940. So there was a slight overlap there. During the war years, we were concerned somewhat with the war, but also we were discovering things. So I would say that we were post-war. Our golden age, if there was such a thing, happened after the war. Yeah. And because during that time we suddenly think, like everybody else, you know, no matter what line of work you were in, the war's over. Let's see what we can do. Yeah. Let's burst out of here if we can.
Okay, now you worked for Disney for a while.
Well, that was only because around 1950, Jack Warner made a picture called the Wax Museum or something in 3D.
Oh, yeah?
And he figured everything had to be 3D. Well, it's hard to make 3D cartoons. And I think Jack Warner thought every baby would be born with one red eye and one green eye. So you know, so he closed down.
Kind of walking to the studios like this and sitting down and just watching it without the glasses.
So he closed the studio down, and I had a contract, but I couldn't see sitting around waiting. And so I called Walt, who I'd communicated with at times, and I asked him if I could come over there for a while. And I went over there, and I was there about 4 months until Jack Warner decided he had to reopen the cartoon studio.
I see. Okay.
But when I was at Disney's, I realized nothing moved unless Disney said move, you know.
Oh, really?
So you'd sit around and wait until
no
Disney
kidding.
showed up. It wasn't Disney's fault so much. People had allowed, had given up their rights, not because he demanded it, because he was responsible really for all of us. But the fact is that I was so used to authority, and authority is the only thing that counts when you're doing it, right? To be able to draw what you want to draw.
Sure.
So finally I said, I have to quit. So I went up to see Walt, and he said, why do you want to leave? And I said, well, there's only one job around here that's worth having. That's yours. And he laughed. He said, yeah, but it's full.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people said that he was like that. He was like the bee that came in and pollinated all the flowers.
Well, he said that.
Oh, really?
But he did have a marvelous. He probably has the best sense of what an audience would respond to than anybody that ever lived. I think, you know, in terms of politics, he probably had about the same acumen as a squid. But he was like Harold Ross. Harold Ross, I think any cartoonist will agree, was the founder of great cartooning in magazines and helped him. He wasn't a cartoonist himself. Walt prepared a ground where artists could flourish, and that's what he did, and that's really exactly what Harold Ross did.
Now, as an artist, how do you see things? How does an animator see things? Unlike, say, an editorial cartoonist. I mean, you see things in weights and shapes and natural phenomenons, you know, like gravity and shadows and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the whole the whole point there is that if you're doing this thing we're talking about, life, that the animation means to invoke life. If you're doing that, then that's what you have to believe. You have to. The people that are watching the show have to believe that it's alive. But first of all, you have to believe it.
Yeah.
So if you're drawing Bugs Bunny, let me give you an example. I was drawing a horse here, but a horse can wait. If you're drawing Bugs Bunny, Bugs would stand. This is a kind of a primitive thing here. Here's Bugs' head up here like this. But Bugs would stand with all his weight on one leg. That's just a natural position for him. And we had to get that feeling of solidity, of belonging there, so that you would really believe that the weight is there. Daffy would stand as a different way. Daffy would stand like this with his legs bent, because Daffy never knew when he was going to have to run. And it doesn't matter where he was always afraid that he might have to run. So he's like that in that position.
God.
But this position is, now curiously enough, where we learned like this is when we were, I used to look at Degas' drawings, you know, and Degas, and we learned a lot about weight. You look at those wonderful drawings of Degas' girls, the little ballerinas and stuff, and you notice an interesting thing. It's hard to believe because they look so round and lovely. That he would draw what's amounted to a straight line like this, right? And then he'd turn like this, and this is the bottom of the foot. Now, it doesn't look like anything like a ballerina, does it? It doesn't look like a rabbit either. Okay, then he would tell the entire story of the leg by drawing this side like that.
Yes.
And if you draw it the other way, like many people, you end up with a bunch of sausages. But he'd do this, and
Really
he'd put all this frilly
fascinating.
stuff around like this, you know, and then he put the crossover business like that. But that laid there.
Isn't that
So when Disney did the thing with those crazy ostriches, you know, drawing.
Oh, yes, in
and
Fantasia.
they went like that, and they would walk like this. And you watch a girl in a ballet walking flat-footed.
Yeah.
She has no choice in the matter. She's got to get over. It's like walking in skis or something. So they
That
walk that
is
way because they have
fascinating.
to. And so you bring your weight down to get this thing. If you get this line correct, you're all right forevermore.
Isn't that interesting?
And as you know, with puppets or
Yeah.
marionettes, if they're not handled properly, they look like they're hanging midair and they sort of bounce.
Right.
A great marionette manipulators, they call them.
Yeah.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
Can feel that, just like when you're driving a car. You can feel where the front wheels are.
Isn't
You're not driving the wheel and then the wheels.
You know,
So-
when I first started recognizing your cartoons, I could always tell, I could see that you were doing certain things. I mean, talking about weights. I can remember at a Wile E. Coyote and a Roadrunner cartoon. It used to be, at the old cartoons, like before you, if you had, you know, Bugs Bunny or Porky Pig or somebody standing there, and something was going to fall on them, the animator would make a boulder fall off the cliff, and then you would see the boulder falling, and then you would see the boulder actually hit, you know, Porky on the head, and then push him down into the ground. Okay.
No.
Now, when I first started noticing your cartoons, you would be saving all this fabulous animation and having a lot of the animation in the guy's brain, in the viewer's brain. You would have a cliff, and then you would show the boulder falling off, and you would have maybe the Roadrunner or Wile E. Coyote, you know, standing there. And then you wouldn't see the boulder falling, and you wouldn't see the boulder hit Wile E. Coyote. You would just see Wile E. Coyote standing there, and then a shadow gets real big, and then the boulder would just appear, and all of the animation was in your brain.
Yeah.
But it was so much more effective.
Yeah, I liked it very much too when he would. And this is the point, you see, as you know, and every cartoonist knows, things happen that you don't expect it to happen. The mutations, you know,
Yeah.
the happy accidents, and you don't know where the hell they come from. And so I'm going to get in a position like that, and old Coyote is sitting like that, and he looks up and he sees, and the shadow falls over. He whips behind him and gets a little umbrella. And holds it like that. Well, I never knew that. Where did it come from? Nobody cares. You know, does he always carry an umbrella? No, but that little thing, that tiny defense thing.
Isn't that exciting?
We always try to do that. You know, if something falls on you, you'll cover your head, but all it does is crush your fingers. It's better to hit your head because it has a lot more resistance to it than your fingers.
Now, okay, now
You have
one
a broken head and broken fingers, okay?
right, both. I mean, you know. Now, one time you told me though that was anatomically or naturally incorrect. Shadows don't get bigger. Shadows
they
always
don't.
just stay the same.
A shadow, they tell me, diminishes by the square root of from the distance of the light source. So since you're dealing with the sun, And that's another thing. But you know, see, an airplane shadow comes over. The shadow is the same size as the airplane because it's the sun that's the source of light. If you want a thing to diminish, of course, when you have a light like we have here, the shadow will get bigger or smaller because the light source is closer.
Jeez, jeez.
But nevertheless, that's artistic license.
Yeah.
And boy, it's our artistic license.
Okay, now talking about the Roadrunner. Here you had to do, I mean, the Roadrunners cartoons were probably the same the same idea over and over again. It was a one long chase. It was a series of 50 chases during one 7-minute cartoon.
Sure.
How did you keep, I mean, when you sat down with the rest of the people that you worked with on the cartoons, how did you keep coming up with new ideas all the time? Because it was the same story over and over.
Well, it's the same life. After all, what is our life composed of? It's composed of efforts over and over and over and over and over again to live. And that's all the coyote's trying to do, is trying to live. So, and also the Coyote and Roadrunner pictures are not about how to catch a Roadrunner, it's how not to catch a Roadrunner.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so you continue to try
Here.
to figure out.
Here, draw Wiley, or draw a coyote.
I'll finish Pepe later.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, no, I mean, I
No,
want to get
I'll
that.
draw a
I wanna get that-
Roadrunner later, but in the
Okay.
meantime, I have to draw. You know, I'm compelled to draw Pepe because Pepe's sexy, and
Well,
my
and-
wife demands that I draw a sexy Pepe once in a while to be sure that.
Okay, now you told me once, I think it was last time, that you had not been able to get girls very much. You were kind of a nerd as a kid, or girls didn't like going out with you.
I'd say maybe. How can you go out with somebody you can't see?
Oh, you were terribly shy.
I was transparent.
Oh, I see.
And,
I see.
you know, we can stand anything, I think. We can stand anything except humiliation or indifference. I think those are the two things. You know, if somebody hates you, at least you know they recognize
Right.
you.
At least you're there. You
And-
know.
and,
You
yeah,
can
you
feel
can fight
yourself
back.
and stuff.
But how can you fight back against nothing? You know, a girl looks at you and she's looking right through you at somebody
Right.
else. All right? All you're doing is a magnifying image. You're helping him look bigger.
And so this was a part of you, huh?
Oh, this was one of the characters. This character, old Pepe, was the one that.
Well, he was
would
so
be
romantic.
well, he was what I'd like to be.
Yes.
Just like Bugs. And so, but Pepe, who is probably the most unlikely person in the world to be socially acceptable, was never has no knowledge of the fact that he may be so. So if a girl runs away from him, he'll say, she's going someplace to find a trysting place. And he says, for the trysting, I can wait.
You know, and that's what we all dream. We
Sure,
all
he doesn't
dream
have any
about. Oh,
fingernails.
sure, that girl really loves me, but you know, she's going off to look around.
Oh,
for
sure. And then he will, while he's waiting, you know, he'll do like anybody else says. This is what I mean by displacement activity. Your nail isn't necessarily dirty, and he doesn't even have nails. Because he'll go like this, you know, while he's waiting. And then he says, not ready or no, I come for you.
Do not come with me to the Casbah. We shall make beautiful music together right here. Ah, c'est l'amour. Ah, c'est toujours. Ah, c'est l'amour. Huh? This small one. She is make herself dainty for me. For the daintiness, I can wait.
When you would start a script, a Pepe Le Pew or a Roadrunner, how would you start? What would be the very first thing you did?
An idea. It was based, there were two basic ways you'd approach a script. One, if you're doing Bugs Bunny, you obviously had a situation. Bugs Bunny would be in a normal rabbit environment, he'd be minding his own business, and somebody would come along and try to deprive him of his foot or send him off in a rocket or do something naughty to him. And he was a peaceful person, then he would fight back. And that's the reason I think that he's remained, you know, an endearing type character, because he's not somebody like Heckle Jekyll, perhaps, that goes out and just is naughty to people for no particular reason.
Sure.
The other kind is what you call a gimmick, which a good example of that would be, I don't like to use the term gimmick, but I've never been able to think of anything more dignified. When you have well, Dumbo is a good example of that, an elephant that's born with huge ears. And of course, if Dumbo had been born in Africa, it would have been okay because the elephants in Africa have big ears.
Right.
But in India, he was a monstrosity.
Yes.
So then you have to learn how to do it. It's the ugly duckling syndrome. So somebody that's born ugly then becomes beautiful.
I see.
Okay?
And so then you would start with a basic story.
A basic story, some kind of a little story gimmick, because you only have 6 minutes.
Sure. Now, I read once, or I heard once, that that you consider Daffy Duck being number one of some of the best scripts that you ever did.
Yeah.
I mean, is that true?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, draw Daffy Duck for us, and
Well, the reason for Daffy being that way is I think that he represents our own foibles, and you can recognize in him, in a multiplied form, the kind of thing that we're afraid we are, you know. We're really afraid that everybody's kind of afraid they'll be as self-serving as Daffy is. And I mean, he takes care of it for you. Just all the things, you know, you know, he says, better it should happen to him than happen to me. And it's right, we do feel that way.
Yeah.
One of the terrible things during the war was that so many of the young men there were broken-hearted and overwhelmed with remorse because their buddy got it. But they found they were happy about it. Well, that's Daffy. Daffy, he wouldn't kill anybody, but he most certainly would be happy under any circumstance which allowed him to become triumphant. Usually, not because he does it right, but because he demands it, you know. But if there's treasures, there isn't one of the pictures, you know. Here's the thing, there's enough treasure for 8,000 people. He wants it all. You know, he says, down, 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 he says to me, with bugs, and he says, it's mine, all mine, you know. I'm a happy miser. I'm socially well off.
Stand back, musketeers! They shall sample my blade. Okay, have it your way. Daffy Duck, he had a farm, E-I-A-I-O. And on this farm he had an igloo, E-I-E-I-O. Would it be too much to ask if we could make up our minds?
were any of these characters taken from any famous people or any famous comedians or anything?
Not famous, no. That was one of the things that we did. We developed the character, the idea. We wrote a script without reference to the voice. Because once we knew the character, of course, we'd do it expressly for that personality.